Welcome to Skin Deep here on SiriusXM Radio, channel 141 HUR Voices. I'm your host, Sharon Morton. And as always, I'm so happy to be here and happy to have you listening. I have on the show today Chris Matthews, who is an award-winning marriage and family therapist and is also the author of Finding Your Relationship Fix: The 4 Reasons Couples Seek Counseling. Chris specializes in helping marriage underdogs, who are couples that have a higher risk of divorce based on characteristics such as having a previous marriage that ended in divorce. Who knew, right? Couples who are entrepreneurs or high income earners. Did you know that? And spouses with a history of cheating and infidelity. Well, of course, we knew that those folks have a higher incidence of divorce, but we're going to get into that in the show. That's a lot, folks, I know. But in addition to Chris's clinical and professional experience, he and his wife, Shantae, have been happily married for 14 or 17 years. He'll straighten that out in the show. And that they are the parents of 3 wonderful children. I have some serious questions for Chris, and I need some answers, and I know you all do too. Marriage and relationships are hard. Monogamy is hard. If we're going to be truthful and honest, monogamy is hard. All of it is hard, right? So Chris Matthews to the rescue. Stay tuned because, as I always say, we're going to be doing more than just scratching the surface. Here on Skin Deep, we're talking all about charging your marriage or relationship like you charge your cell phone. Okay, Chris Matthews said that. And by the way, if you want to reach out, email me at skindeepradioshow@gmail.com. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back with information you just can't afford to miss here on Skin Deep. Welcome back to Skin Deep here on SiriusXM Radio, channel 141. As I mentioned before the break, I have with me Chris Matthews, who is an award-winning marriage and family therapist and is also the author of Finding Your Relationship Fix: The 4 Reasons Couples Seek Counseling. Chris is going to tell us how to keep ourselves out of divorce court. Welcome to Skin Deep, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to see you. You know, we met at the what was that? The Black Chamber of Commerce event a couple of months ago, and you were in one of my master classes, and I was talking about how my husband and I were married for 25 years, and then we separated, and I kept trying to get a divorce, and then COVID came and the courthouses were closed and I couldn't get a divorce, and then we ended up getting back together. So most couples don't go through that. Tell us all about like your journey to being a marriage counselor. Why did you want to become a marriage counselor? And what is it that you typically hear from couples when you are doing counseling?
Yeah, so my journey started at the age of 19. My wife and I were in undergrad. She was at a school 3 hours apart. And while we were dating, we unexpectedly got pregnant with our first child after 18 months. So I had to make that call home no parent wants to hear. Mom, dad, I got my girlfriend pregnant. And from that situation, I went to my school counseling center, looked around, didn't see any men, didn't see any persons of color. So I went to my pastor, like a lot of us do. My pastor did a great job praying for us, but I wasn't given any tools or techniques to learn how to be married. Fast forward, my wife and I learned the hard way. And after we made it through our journey, I wanted to go back to school, get a master's in marriage and family therapy so I could help other young couples and other couples of color like myself navigate marriage. That's really how I got into the field. And your second question was, what do I see in counseling? And the most prevalent issue that I see that couples bring in is infidelity. And infidelity doesn't just look like having sex with another person.
Okay.
It can look like Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram, and all of your social media outlets.
I
Whenever a
was I
partner,
was going to ask you
yeah,
about that. I think social media plays a huge role in infidelity now. It's so
absolutely.
easy to fall prey to temptation. There's so many people out here who have no respect for marriages and will just come in and try to purposely break up your marriage. But go ahead, what were you going to say about that?
You're exactly right. Infidelity is something that stems from giving someone else the attention or doorway into your marriage. And that
Mhm.
starts with Facebook. When you rekindle with an old childhood friend or college friend that you might have been attracted to because you and your wife or your husband aren't getting along, it opens up the door. And in my book, I talk about how infidelity needs a breeding ground. When you
Mhm.
think about bacteria growing, it has to have the appropriate environment. And that environment usually starts in marriages when couples begin to distance themselves from each other. And once that space opens up, temptations are able to flourish. That's what I see a lot of couples come into my practice with, those temptations. And then it's too late at that point. The damage is done, the attachment wounds have occurred, the trust has been lost, and we're having to grieve an old marriage or old relationship and rebuild a brand new marriage.
And that's
And that's what we're
hard.
doing.
That's hard to do. Rebuilding anything is hard to do. But, I think that a lot of times too, as humans, sometimes we're wired to feel or think that the grass is greener on the other side, especially when we're having difficulty on our side or in our marriages or in our relationships. That new shiny thing, that new shiny toy always looks good. It's almost like, buying a new car, and after driving it for, 4, 5, 6 years, all these other new cars you see look better and
Mhm.
bigger and more spacious. And it's hard not to be attracted to newer things. Monogamy is hard. I need you to tell me, am I just thinking this? Isn't it hard to be faithful to one person forever?
Monogamy is hard when you don't continue to reinvent your marriage and reinvent each other's love for one another. And I believe that every day should be a reinvention of the marriage. Every day I'm attempting to find new ways for my wife to be attracted to me, and she's attempting to find new ways for me to be attracted to her. That new shiny thing doesn't really tend to work out when you look at research. Second marriages have a higher divorce rate of within the 60s and then 60%, and then third marriages are even worse with 70%. So each
Wow.
marriage gives you more of a chance of divorcing. And
Wow.
so it doesn't get better on the other side just because you left that one partner. You have to be mindful that monogamy can be hard when you only make it about sex or if you only make it about one thing. I tell couples, you want to get the whole package, right? Make sure you visit every single room within the house of marriage. There's a lot of different things you can do, but creativity. Monogamy can work if you put the effort toward being creative and reinventing your attraction and attachment to your partner.
So you can do that, like, after, like, for me, for instance, I've been married over 30 years now. Are you saying that you can actually reinvent and keep it fresh and new after decades of being married?
Absolutely. Because you're reinventing on a foundation of past experiences that you've shared together, which makes it even sweeter.
Mhm.
Monogamy is that thing like, concrete gets harder and harder over its lifespan, right? Monogamy is that thing that gets better and better. It's like wine. It ages and it becomes more valuable the older it gets. The same in your marriage. You and your husband can take an exotic trip. You can do things. You can engage in role play. You can actually have a lot of spiciness that you add to that marriage. It's like a dish, just put new ingredients in.
Okay, okay. I'm hearing you, Chris. Let's talk a little bit about what you call marriage underdogs, because you said you and your wife, you all are marriage underdogs. What is that?
So Marriage Underdog is a brand that I've coined based on certain different characteristics that lead couples to divorce. If you're in a marriage and, for example, there are things you may not be able to control. If both of your parents were divorced or never married, if you had moments within the marriage where you threatened to divorce or to leave, these are different characteristics that put you at a higher risk for divorce. So that makes you an underdog. If you are a person that is dating a partner that is of a different race, research shows that that can increase the chances of divorce. If you and your partner have different religious viewpoints, there's so many different characteristics, but there are about 10 that I've coined and I've really done the research to identify that increase your chances of divorce. And that's what makes you a marriage underdog when those risks are prevalent.
Yeah, and I read some of those, but I didn't understand why um having a previous marriage before meeting your current partner or spouse increases the odds of you getting divorced? Why do second and third married people tend to get divorced or have higher divorce rates? I don't understand that.
Simply put, they take old baggage into a new relationship. A lot of
Oh,
the times when we divorce a person, we only look at what they did to us, but we don't realize what we did to attract that person to us, and we don't realize the different traits or characteristics we choose not to change that we're just taking back into another marriage. And that's why those
okay.
risks are higher, because people don't get the help they need through counseling and making sure that they don't take the same issues into a new relationship.
Okay. Now, one other question I had about marriage underdogs and people being a marriage underdog. You said that living with your partner prior to marriage or engagement increases your odds of getting divorced. 60% of cohabitating couples will eventually marry, but living together prior to marriage increases divorce by almost 40%. Why is that?
The reason why is because when you live with a person, typically you're going to be engaging in sexual activity. And a
Mhm.
lot of people are essentially, you ever heard the phrase, why buy the cow when you get the milk for free?
Yes.
So you you open up
That's
that
why
door.
that's why I didn't live with my husband before we got married. He tried to convince me
Exactly.
to live with him. I was like, "Oh, no, 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 no." But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because you open that door up. And men,
Right.
and I find this often in therapy, couples that were dating may have had infidelity or cheating, and then when they get married, the man believes that it's like the baptism, that the sins of the cheating will be washed away by the marriage. It doesn't work that way. Those emotions and those attachment wounds and those feelings are just going to be taken into a marriage. You don't just automatically stop, not trusting your partner because you're now married and they cheated on you while you were dating. And cohabitating partners tend to have a higher risk of infidelity. So you're now you're building a house on a faulty foundation at that point. So that's why cohabitation leads to issues when you do get married, because a lot of men don't see it as a true commitment until there's marriage, but the
Right.
emotions are still there when they've hurt their partner by cheating.
Yeah, yeah, they don't those emotions don't go away, and that's why they need people like you, therapists, to help them get through that, those emotions and through that, episode of cheating or episodes of cheating, which is really difficult to do, because, building trust is very hard. I also wanted to talk to Chris, we're gonna go to break in a minute, but I think you mentioned something about only, I was reading where you said, is it only 31% of Black men get married? Is that the percentage? I'm not sure.
Yes, based on the US Census data, over the last 5 years of data they collected, only 31% of Black men had been married or
Yeah,
are married currently.
and so many women, I mean, we're groomed and indoctrinated as little girls to grow up and get married and have a family. Men aren't groomed to do that. But it seems like our parents and our grandparents, great grandparents, they knew that that was just part of being an adult, getting married, starting a family. The men today, and even the young women, no one's in a rush to get married. But why is it that with Black men, they are less likely to get married? And we're going to talk about that when we come from the break. So, folks, you have to stay tuned. This is some good information. I'm going to have Chris back on the show because I have like a whole table full of questions for him. But we'll be right back here on Skin Deep on Sirius XM Radio, channel 141. Welcome back to Skin Deep here on Sirius XM Radio. We were in a really juicy conversation, folks, talking to Chris Matthews, who is an award-winning marriage and family therapist. I was asking Chris, you said this, the census, I think you said, showed that only a third or 31% of Black men get married. Why is it that Black men, especially in the last 5 years and today, why is it that they don't wanna get married? I've always felt that it was so that they could, do what they want, have as many women as they want, have as much sex as they want, and frankly, if I was a man, I'd probably do the same thing.
A lot of men are not getting married because of the poor examples they have of what marriage looks like.
Oh, okay.
if you're a man, a black man, a man of color, and you witnessed either your parents not get married or they had a tumultuous marriage, you yourself aren't going to want to sign up for that. Marriage is not looking attractive for a lot of men. When you also have the higher rates of cohabitation, then, like I said earlier, if men can obtain sex, obtain that home cooked meal, all of those pleasantries they may want or desire from a woman, dual income, all of the different things, the child rearing, if they're getting all these things without marriage, then a lot of
Right.
men are saying, well, what's the point?
I agree. I agree. If I was a man and I didn't have to get married, but I'm still getting all of the perks of marriage, I wouldn't get married either. So I agree with you. So I it sounds like it's the women who are allowing the men to get away with this, because if women stop doing that, then I'm thinking men would be more prone to getting married. Is that what you're saying? That's what it sounds like.
Well, we're finding that the black women are actually marrying outside of their race at higher rates.
Now they
Yeah,
are.
interracial marriages are on the rise. They've
Mhm.
increased 10% in the last year. And a lot of black women are marrying outside of the race. And you're right, if the it takes two to tango. So I don't
Right.
want to put one on the man or the woman, but if women in general take that stance, do not set that standard where they're just going to allow a man to come in, get all the perks of marriage, thinking that that's going to make them marry them. And that's the problem. If you give a man all of the perks of marriage, that's not going to make them want to marry you. That's actually going to make them question, why should they marry you?
Okay. That's good information. And I'm in support of black women marrying outside of their race if black men don't want to marry them. I mean, what are they supposed to do? Just sit around twiddling their thumbs? And to be quite honest, I have lots of girlfriends, black girlfriends, and a lot of them are single, and they talk about how black men are with women outside of their race all of the time. And how white men and Hispanic men and other men are very attracted to black women and are willing to get married and all of those things. And so do you think it makes a difference in the black community if everybody is marrying or dating outside of their race? Or do you think black men and black women just have a lot of work to do and we need to figure out how to come back together?
I believe the latter. I believe that there are a lot of suitable black men and women that can engage in a happy marriage. We have to, as a community of people, heal ourselves so we can then come together and be good enough for each other. If you have men that haven't dealt with their own past traumas and they haven't dealt with their pains and struggles, then they're not going to be an attractive mate and vice versa. So I believe as black folk, we just have to focus on ourselves and learn how to love ourselves, and then we can learn how to love each other.
That's kinda, easier said than done, though, because thankfully, the stigma of getting help and counseling, is gradually fading away
Mhm.
nowadays, but I have to say from experience, a lot of times black men are not interested in getting therapy. And it's really hard. You like just like a lot of times they don't want to go to the doctor. You really have to practically force them to do that. And I saw where you talked about there are 8 ways to be emotionally available in your relationship, but you can't be emotionally available if you're broken and if you refuse to go get therapy. What do you say to couples where one spouse refuses to get help?
If one spouse refuses to get help, there are things that are therapeutic, even though they may not be therapy. What I mean by that, there are certain things that we can do. For example, surrounding yourself around positive examples. That's the biggest thing that men can do. Surrounding yourself around other men that have engaged in marriage and provide a good example of what a happy, healthy marriage looks like. That's going to be a starting point. Also, there's a rise of black male therapists that are coming within the field. Before you had the stigma of therapy, there were communal moments, and we're communal people. So I
Mhm.
believe if we bring back community, then we can heal men and women, and we can actually increase those marital rates. It just has to be something that is seen. If we're going on past examples of parents cheating or not getting married, then we have to wash out those negative stigmas and stereotypes in how we see marriage.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the work that I do, promoting a positive, healthy image. Even with the Underdog brand, my wife and I could have easily just decided it was too much, or we had all these things against us and we should just part ways. But I learned that I wanted a family, the value of family. Men that are married make more money. They actually live longer. They have less anxieties and health issues, mental and physical. So if we can promote the benefits of marriage and the sell of marriage, I believe that we can increase those rates.
I think so too, but I've heard some men say they don't want to get married because it's just too hard to stay with one woman, to have sex with one woman for forever. And so they prefer not to get married. What do you say to those men? Do you say the same thing that you said earlier to me about monogamy?
Yeah, I believe that the men who decide they don't want to just lay down with one woman for the rest of their life, they're missing the fact that sex is only one part of physical intimacy and connection. It's an
Mhm.
important part, but it's not the whole relationship.
Yeah.
People age and want different things. I'm not saying everybody has to be married. I'm not saying everybody has to engage in a monogamous relationship. What I am saying is you have to be emotionally mature enough to acknowledge and identify what you want. The problem that I see in counseling are when men and women come in playing games. And playing games looks like I'm going to have this person in a monogamous relationship, but I know I'm not going to be faithful, but I don't want to tell them because I like the benefits of being with them.
Right.
That's
You
a
said
game.
both men and women come in playing
Both
those
men and
games.
women come in with that. It might be this person's a good provider. It
Right.
might even be a provider of attention and time and reliability. There's so many men and women I've counseled, and they will tell me, "Hey, this person was someone I knew I didn't want to be with, but it was better to be with them than be by myself."
Wow. And what do you say to people like that? Like, what do you say to people who say, I really like somebody else better, but this person is more stable or makes more money or whatever? What do you say to people who come in and tell you that?
I ask those people to question their own esteem and value.
Okay.
We can relate it to the workforce. I recall your story. You were very passionate about pursuing your dreams.
Yeah.
You wanted to be on TV. That was your dream.
Yeah.
And I'm sure along the way, a lot of people told you that may not happen, but you made it happen. If we can enhance people's esteem to have the belief they deserve and can accomplish and achieve a happy, healthy relationship with another person, that's where it starts.
But is that what you tell these couples who come in and say, hey, I'm not going to really be faithful to this person, but this is I like this person because XYZ. Do you tell them that?
I provide the environment for them to tell their partner that. Therapy is
What?
about creating a space.
For them to tell their partner the truth?
Yes.
Then there's no more relationship, there's no more marriage, because if someone tells me that, I'm out.
What I
If someone
find
tells
is
me I'm only with you because XYZ, or I have no intentions of being faithful, or I like somebody else, but you're the better of the two. I'm outie.
I would understand why you'd say that. Obviously, the shock of that, right?
Right.
Oddly enough, I've seen couples take time to unpack how they got there because initially they didn't start there. There was a
Right.
journey or a process, and we can reverse engineer that process to get the couples back together. But we got to be honest and truthful about where you are at the beginning so we can understand where to go.
Wow, that's some interesting stuff, Chris. I know you have heard some stories.
Yes, the job is not easy.
Listen, tell everybody where they can find your book, Finding Your Relationship Fix: The 4 Reasons Couples Seek Counseling.
So the book is located on Amazon and Audible. So that's easy to
Yeah, that's
find. Also on my personal website, which is my name, chrisamatthews.com. The book is available on the website. But I just tell people it's easy just to find it on Amazon because you can get the Audible download for audio, or you can get the printed or the digital copy as well.
And also tell us where we can find you because I know you're on LinkedIn. Where else are you located?
I'm on Instagram under Chris A. Matthews _. Also, Facebook, Facebook and LinkedIn are connected now. And LinkedIn and then my personal website, chrisamatthews.com.
I have to have you back on because I do have a whole bunch more questions, Chris, and I am going to send out something to my listeners to find out what questions they have for you. But before you go, tell us the importance of date night. I mean, is date night just sex? What is date night? And why should all couples, whether they're married or not, have date night?
So date night is extremely important. The University of Virginia, they have a marital institute program, and they found that 91% of wives who went on one date night a week stated they were happily married. And the number was even more staggering for men who stated that one date night a week enhanced their intimacy level with their partner. Date night is our ability to go against the gravitational pull or force that always works to break you and your partner up. When you think
Mhm.
about kids, your profession, there's always something trying to pull you apart. And the
Right.
work or the goal of marriage is to stay connected despite all the things that are working to pull you apart. And that's what date night does. It's an intentional act that creates a space for you and your partner to cut everything out, kids, distractions, and just focus on each other.
And it's a night that should not be canceled, right? Put it on your calendar.
Absolutely. It is the most important staff meeting of your week.
I love it. I love it. We gotta go. We gotta go, Chris. I loved having you here. That's it for now, folks. I'm your host, Sharon Morton, here with marriage counselor and author Chris A. Matthews. So I hope that you take the information that we provided today and use it to charge your marriage like you charge your cell phone. I like that, Chris. You can hear this show on Sirius XM Radio Channel 141 HUR Voices on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, as well as on iTunes, Spotify, and all the streaming platforms. And hit me up on Skin Deep Radio Show at gmail.com or check me out at Sharon_Morton on IG and Facebook. Thanks again for tuning in on all things that are skin deep.